From headlines to heartbeats, this is More Than News with Kris Moore. Buckle up for a journey beyond the surface, where we uncover the real stories shaping our world.
Well, we want to thank everybody for joining us today. It's Kris Moore with More Than News, and we're going to have a really exciting show today because I've got the ultimate newscaster, news anchor, been around in media for about the same amount of years as me, and that's only, 3 now?
46 years?
Oh, Lord.
Yeah, I know.
That's hard to even imagine. Jay Hendricks is joining me this morning. It is currently morning. So, Jay, you have been in television, you've been in radio, you've been in sports, which we were talking just a moment ago. I had forgotten. Did you start in? How did you get your start?
So I went to North Texas. That's where I went to college. And actually, fast forward before that, I started at Odessa College. And Odessa College had a radio and television program. We had an AOR station, album-oriented rock station. And I worked there first as a disc jockey, and then we had OC television. So I had a chance to do newscasts. We did nightly newscasts there. Tom Barnett was the instructor. We recorded those, and I hadn't had a job for about 3 months. And Wally Jackson was the broadcasting instructor for the radio side. And Wally worked for Channel 2 years ago. He was an anchor, big, deep baritone voice, kind of a larger man. Everybody called him Uncle Wally. That was how he wanted to be called. I went in for a meeting with him to take broadcasting classes, and I'm talking to him. And of course, being from West Texas, you got that nice West Texas twang. And he says to me, "If you don't lose that damn accent, you'll never make it in TV." And I never forgot it. So I went through broadcasting classes and learned to speak regularly. If I get around my twin brother, it comes back because he works in the oil field, and that's the way they talk.
That's the way they talk, yeah.
It does come back periodically. But anyway, I started doing newscasting. And then one day, Uncle Wally called me in. He said, "I need to see you. I need to see you," with his deep voice. And I thought, he's kicking me out or something.
Yeah.
And he said, "You don't have a job. Go down and see Peter Renda. He's looking for a cameraman at KOSA. Go get the job." And I got the job that day. So my first job was actually running teleprompter on the floor. Well, back then, that's where the teleprompter ran. And let me explain. The reporters used to type. We all used manual typewriters.
That's right.
8 carbon sets, and you had to type hard enough to go through to the very last piece of copy. Each had a different color, and each went to a director, audio person, tape operator, the teleprompter. Teleprompter was white paper with black print. And so they would type out the script on it, and we would tape them one after another on a conveyor belt. And you would read along, had a camera shooting down on it, and you would read, and that's how they read the teleprompter. And so that was my first job on the floor. And I went from teleprompter to running cameras, went all through the control room, directing newscasts, audio, and then I was already doing newscasts. And so one day, John McCall called me in and said, "We want to use you in the newsroom because you already have experience." So I started filling in. I was doing sports, weekend sports, and filling in for Jay Gordon Lunn, who was doing weather 7 days a week.
I remember Jay Gordon.
And so I filled in for him, and I went off to North Texas. And when I went and met with my professor for a degree plan, he said, "We don't like people from Midland, Odessa." And I said, "Well, can I have a new dean? Because if you're not, he says, I don't mean that bad, but you have more experience than a lot of our instructors." And so that's what you find in colleges in a lot of cases, that most of these people teaching are academics. They're not, they have not been in the television industry. And so that's what he meant. I had already been on air. And so at North Texas, we only had radio, and I did play-by-play in color for North Texas football and basketball. We had this instructor it was our sports information director and sports broadcasting teacher. His name was Bill Mercer. If you've seen the movie Iron Claw that came out about the Von Erich family, there is an announcer in there named Bill. That's Bill Mercer. Bill Mercer was the voice of WCCW, where the Von Erichs had their wrestling program and show at the Sportatorium. He did those shows nightly. And well-known at registration, he had the longest line of people because of the international students loved watching the Von Erichs and his show, and they knew Bill. So they weren't there to sign up for his classes. They were there just to get
Just to see him,
Bill.
of course.
And so, but anyway, so Bill got me involved in doing play-by-play in color. And then the last year I was there, he took over the broadcast for North Texas. And a guy by the name of Craig Way, who did Texas football for a number of years, he and I split doing spotting and statistics for Bill. And an ex-North Texas football player named Ronnie Shanklin, who played for the Steelers, he did color. So that's how I kind of got my career, and I came back to Odessa because I had a job. Within 2 months, I was hired by Channel 9 to be their full-time weather person, and I worked over there 21 years, eventually switching to news. I did sports in between there. 7.5 years I did sports, and I was there during the Friday Night Lights year, and I was there during a lot of big times for sports in this area. And then in 1992, I changed to news, and I've been doing news ever since.
Well, I've known you quite a while. I didn't know the whole past of where you came from, how you got started. But I remember back when I was doing radio, and we were talking about that just a moment ago, because everything has changed. Just listening about the teleprompter, because folks now, if they're working on air, it's completely different.
It's all computerized.
All computerized. But you would come in to the studio and have to do your news. You would do live news.
We still do live news. Yes, we had to come in and type scripts, and of course, again, manual typewriters. I could not type, so I typed 2 fingers until I learned to type. But I typed so many scripts over the years that I learned to type. We eventually switched to electric and didn't have all the carbons, and then we went computer, and everything's computer. When I started, we had a teletype still. That's how we got all of our information. We had a closet with this noisy machine that went constantly typing out all your stuff, and it was separated by sports, news, whatever. We even got our weather information that way, too. And so I did weather for 1.5 years, and then they let me move over to sports. Did that and then news. But it's all changed. And of course, back then we did 2 shows. Chris, we did a 6 and a 10.
Mm-hmm.
We did 2 shows on Saturday, 1 on Sunday, and we had no morning show. We had no noon show. We didn't have anything like that. So think about that. We had probably 5-6 reporters, and we just constantly did show, day after day. Now, for us now at First Alert 7, we're doing a 2-hour morning show. We have 30 minutes at noon. We have an hour-long 4. We have a 30-minute 5, 30-minute 6. We have a 9 on the CW and a 10 o'clock, which is 30 minutes. So we're doing shows all day long. There's several reasons why. This is a political year. It's a presidential year, and so there's a lot of commercials being run, and so we can run all stations. So stations make a lot of money. But we're also trying to reach out to people who may not normally watch your 6 and your 10 or your others. You may get them with a night watch show before they go to bed, or this kind of format. So that's what we're doing. That's how it's changed.
Well, it's changed quite a bit. You're right. 6 and 10, because everybody, that's what they would do. Right. They'd go home and they'd watch the news. Mm-hmm. Well, now you've got social media.
Right.
And social media and satellite being in radio, satellite radio, the whole industry has changed so very much. And do you think it's a good change? Because you are having to make all these, that's a lot of work. That's a lot of hours.
Here's what we've learned is because of social media and putting out our stories all day, like we just had a push alert earlier about something in downtown Midland. And so you're getting constant updates. And so by the time they hit our newscast at 6 and 10, they already know. They already know what's going on because it's all right there on their phone. And
right.
That's where viewers are now, is on your phone.
Yes.
So that's changed. It's bad because a lot of people are relying on getting their news off social media, and it depends on where you're getting it, whether you're getting the
accurate
information. And that's a problem. There have been stories done about people that are getting it off of TikTok and getting it off of, where else. TikTok is a big one that I know they're talking about.
It'll be Instagram.
And so that's where younger kids are better at it. But we have a lot of people that are on their phones. And this is a young industry that we really need younger people to do it. And so I always say, for a dinosaur like me, I'm not good on social media. And you have to be really good on social media to be successful. My co-acre's 25 years old, and she does a great job on social media. She knows, understands it. I'm kind of a dinosaur of the group. I started way back, and so.
But the knowledge you have and how we have watched the whole industry change so much. I love that. Kids these days, 25-year-olds, they don't understand the process on how it started. And like whenever we had to edit anything back in the radio station, we would have, it was on tape, and you would slice and tape it.
Yep. And cameras were shot that way, too. First camera I ever shot was a Canon Scooping, which was film. And so the film had to be processed. And then you got the film, and you had to go through and cut and splice. And so the last group that ever changed, we had a crew in Midland. This was at KOSA, and we had stationed in Odessa. Our crew in Midland shot film until we finally had to say, stop, it's time to go to the new one. But they resisted it because that's how they knew to edit. And so they were fast at it. They could get their content on. So we finally had to change it because the processing fee film got more expensive, and we were only just doing their film. So we had to change that. Tommy Holcomb did it for years. He processed all the film over there. And, he'd go into that room and he'd be in there 30 minutes, developing film. And that was his job. And he was good at it. But, yeah, so it changed like that. Now we're all digital. Now we're all,
It's crazy.
It is. It really is. I was lucky. I'll be honest, Kris. I was lucky because I was here at a good time when the transition for me to get into TV. I traveled. You think about it now. I went to D.C. I went to New York. I was there 6 weeks after 9/11. I was there for the 1-year anniversary. I went as part of a U.S.-German journalist exchange program, spent 2 weeks in Germany with other journalists. The things that I covered over the years
have been amazing.
We now have DC Bureau. I covered DC, and now we have a DC Bureau, so we don't ever really go to DC. I've gone on the honor flight, obviously, but Pfluger invited me this past year to go, and I sat in on the State of the Union in person, which was fascinating to watch. I would urge people, hopefully they would get a chance to do it, because I know that some in the public can do it too, but I was invited by Pfluger, and just to watch it in person as opposed to seeing it on TV was fascinating. I could write a book about that alone and what you saw there and who you saw there. Interestingly enough, I saw the State of the Union, and this was after George Soros had been kicked out. He was there. He was on the floor taking pictures with all the Democrats and all, and then they had to escort him out before it started. But it's just a big theater, and it's weird to see it in person as opposed to being on TV.
So if you're looking back, and even currently, what is your favorite?
9/11 was interesting. It was very fascinating because here's the way it went. 6 weeks after, we'd all been watching it on TV. And I was on the air doing radio news at the time from my house. I had a Marty unit set up in my house. And I would just get up in the morning and turn it on, and I would do the newscast from my house. Our friends would say, to my wife, that must be interesting, him getting up. And, how and she says, don't be impressed. He's in his boxers on. Just to give some levity.
Be able to do that now.
Yes. But anyway, so I was on the air when that happened. And Susan came in and she said, turn on your TV. The plane just went into the Twin Towers. And so I turned it on. And, of course, at that point, they shut me down and shut everything down. And we were nonstop. So think about this. 6 weeks long, we're watching all this. 6 weeks later, John Foster, our late general manager, calls me in and says, hey, I'm going to send you to New York to cover 9/11. And I looked at him and said, 6 weeks after, what am I going to do that we haven't already seen? And he smiled and he said, don't worry, we're going to tell people you're going. We will have stories. And he was right. So what I ended up
so many stories.
Were stories about people from our area who lived there and what happened to them. Like there was a young girl that was a med student at NYU, and that day a lot of them went by the bus and went down to a hospital and did triage on patients that were coming out of ground zero. And so I went back at the 6 weeks after, I went to her campus and went into her dorm room and interviewed her about what she did. Well, her fascinating story was she went down there and worked for 3.5 hours in an emergency room. And then when it was time to quit, she had to get back home. So she's in lower Manhattan. She has to get up to like 100 21st Street. So if you get an idea, that's a rather large
Area. Yeah.
By cab, it'd probably take you 15, 20 minutes. There were no cabs, no subways, no transportation. So she walked from ground zero to 121st Street, which took her 3.5 hours to do.
That's dedication.
And well, she had to get back. She had to get back to school. So we talked to her about that and what that was like. She's now a doctor in Odessa, and I've talked to her at a couple of the anniversaries. Another was a girl that worked for Saks Fifth Avenue and talking about how they had to address their windows in Times Square because of what had happened and how they were being reverent to what was happening and lives lost. And so they had to do things a little different. Another was a student from Brooklyn. They lived in Brooklyn, New York, crossing water. And we went up on the top of this brownstone and kind of pointed across to see this church steeple. He says, you see this church steeple before the Twin Towers covered it. And now that's my view. Twin Towers are gone. So, you just had these interesting stories of people. And then I went back at the 1 year because we had the opportunity to go live from down at where the Twin Towers were. Now, when I was there 6 weeks after, they said, this will take 2 years to clean up because it was still working. Cranes were working. Smoke was flying. I mean, papers were still falling out of buildings. And they said 2 years. Well, I get back at the 1 year and it's cleaned up, completely cleaned up. And you can see down 7 floors underground. That's how far down the damage went. The 8th floor underneath that ground was the subway station. It did not damage the subway station underneath the Twin Towers, but it did right up to that floor. And so my view, and if you go to my Facebook page, you can see the view. I was live, kind of an outdoor kind of walk area around a building where it was damaged also, but they were able to get it back open. And the view is those Twin Towers. You can see them right behind you. And so I haven't been back since. I'm going this November, and I really want to go down and see the new program because I haven't been down there since.
Well, I'm looking forward to it. Are you going to do a story from there?
I probably won't.
You're just going to personally enjoy it.
Go. I will take pictures, and I may share something on social media, but I'm really just fascinated to go down there. We're going down, honestly, to watch the Macy's Parade live. But while I'm there, I want to go down and see that.
Well, that'll be fascinating. I'm going to be looking forward.
To it, yeah.
Okay, so what people also don't realize, because if they watch the Talking Heads on ABC, CBS, your big anchors that don't do a whole lot of work. Somebody types up all their news and hands it to them. They just read it. They do. Is that not correct?
They may type some of their own. We type some of our own as well. So everybody that types, so when we get ready for a newscast, you have all these scripts. We all can look at the rundown. We'll get in there. And, of course, you always read because nothing against our young reporters, but I don't know if we're teaching grammar in school like we should. And so there are some grammar issues that we have to fix. And but for the most part, we just go in and maybe I read it different than you. So I want it my way, not your way. So we do have our hands on everything. So at the network level, I'm not sure how that works. They may have somebody that writes it. I'm sure they look at it before.
Oh, of course.
But yes, they do it different than we do.
Well, you do a lot of local events. Every time I go anywhere, Jay Hendricks is there, whether it's Meals on Wheels or parades or all kind of nonprofit fundraisers. How do you find time to do all of that?
I don't tell them no, so my calendar stays full. There's so many good organizations. So
there are.
I'm not financially set where I could give people money. So if my donation to them is doing their event and helping them raise money, then I've done my job.
Yeah.
But they ask me, and I have the right to tell them yes or no. And I usually don't tell them no unless I have a conflict. I know there are some stations that are anxious for me, so I have 2 years left on my contract. That'll give me 48 years. I don't want to work 50 because you don't get anything for 50. It's just a number. 48 is plenty. And the younger that this television business gets, that urge is to maybe get out and do something else. I always say I want to do something fun and be paid for. And everybody I say that to, they say, well, if you find it, let me know. And I
please
said, no,
let me know.
Let you know because I'm going to take it. But, long term, I have loved the business. I've been very lucky. It's been good to me. But yes, anytime they ask me to do something, I'm not going to tell them no. And so my calendar is full. Today is full. We have an event tonight between shows. Tomorrow is the opening ceremonies for the State Special Olympics Fall Classic that starts in Odessa.
Right.
Odessa Midland will host. And the way it'll work is Odessa will host this year, Midland will host next year because of the oil show.
Right.
And so they'll alternate between the 2 years. And this is a big deal. It was in College Station 13 years. They decided to move it here. And so I'll be involved with that. Tatum Hubbard and I will do the opening ceremonies tomorrow night.
Wonderful.
And then I see what I have Saturday. I have something in the morning, and then I'll go to the UTPB football game. But sometimes it's just for fun. I can do things. But yeah, I do a lot. And again, I don't tell them no. But some of the other stations are anxious when my 2 years are up that maybe they can take over. We'll see. I might do that as a job too. That could be a job doing these events. So we'll see. We'll see.
Sounds like a pretty good plan.
I don't know.
It is. Whenever you've been in media for so long and watch it change the way it has, and you're like me, it's a passion. You enjoy. I can tell by watching you. Now, what I really like watching though is your Facebook Live. Every night promoting what is about to happen on the news.
Yeah. Just kind of give them an idea of what we have coming up. And sometimes they go long, sometimes they don't. It's just kind of a take just to let them know here's what we're doing. It's amazing the views that we do get. And that's something we try to keep up on. And about the only night we are not consistent with it is Friday night because of high school football. And of course, we have a shortened 10 o'clock.
Right.
Having done football in the past, that's a big night to do all those scores and highlights, and that's a lot of work. And so we typically don't do it on Friday night just because we do a shortened version of the newscast, and the rest of it goes to high school football.
Okay, well, I got to thank you for walking us down through memory lane on media.
I had to think a lot about that.
You were so kind. I said, he goes, what do you want to talk about? I said, oh, I don't know. I thought we talked about television and how it's changed.
I could talk
and
about
have you gone?
You know what a baseball fan I am. I could talk about baseball.
Oh
too,
my
that's a whole
gosh!
issue. But no, it's just
I'm gonna have you back for baseball.
This has been a fun ride. I'll be honest with you. And I had to thank my late wife because she was my age.
Yes, she was just beautiful. Y'all were the perfect partners.
Thank you. She took care of me and helped me to have a good career here. And of course, John Bushman hired me back to come to Channel 7. And John took care of us. But anyway, it's been a great ride. And I think 2 more years. And then, I don't know. We'll see where it goes from there.
Well, we'll definitely get you back over here again. And next time we might just talk baseball.
We can talk about something else. Yeah.
We'll talk. We'll find a topic. I got a feeling you've got some opinions on quite a few different topics. Maybe we'll talk cooking.
I don't cook.
I know.
I don't cook.
Yeah.
My wife was the cook, and I'm not a cook. So I'm gonna have to learn.
We'll figure something out.
Yeah.
So tell them that how they can watch you, how they can, if they want to follow up, all the information.
The biggest change for us, and of course, people are getting used to it now, is we changed our name. We are now First Alert 7.
Why?
So, it was a corporate decision.
Okay.
We're all corporate owned now, but they wanted to kind of have all stations affiliate the same way. So all of our stations are First Alert stations. And so we've always been First Alert Weather. Everybody knows that. But they just decided to make that change just to make easier on everybody. And so we are all that way. And I think long term, their thought is down the road, if you change affiliates, you don't have to change your name. You're already First Alert 7. And so we're getting used to it as well. There are times where I mess it up, and I just kind of smile and move on and do the correct one.
I think everybody does.
Well,
we're all getting used to it.
But, so they can get us on our First Alert 7 Facebook page. They can get us on,
of course, all the different times.
Yes, all different times, and we keep content up to date. And I know there's been a lot of talk lately too about so our social media desk. We all have. Every station has them. We get some content up there that makes it look like it's local, but that's for engagement, and that's done out on our national news desk. We do have a desk that does that, and so we've had to explain to a lot of people it's really just to get people to look at it. There's no mention of it being local. It just says, whatever. And it is a little misleading. And so we've talked about this a lot, but that's done by our corporate level. So we can't really do much about that. But all of our stations do it. And so we just try to keep up to date with local content too.
Well, thank you again for taking
Thank
some
you for
time.
having me.
Busy
Thank you.
man,
Thank
Jay Hendricks.
I got to go do another one.
I
actually.
know. So I'm gonna kick you to the curb.
Okay. Well, thank you for letting me do it.
Well, we will definitely do it again.
Sounds good.
You've been listening to More Than News with Kris Moore. Join us next time as we continue to dig deeper, ask tougher questions, and bring you the insights that truly matter.